Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is the 1950 Cleveland Indians MLB baseball season. Again, the Tribe was playing in the American League, the junior circuit of Major League Baseball, and home games were played at Cleveland Municipal Stadium downtown. The Tribe had a strong year in 1950, tremendous year. They finished in fourth place with a record of 92-62, 30 games over 500. Winning percentage of .597, really good. 6 games out of first. The first place team was the New York Yankees, who were 98-56, winning percentage of .636. Second place, the Detroit Tigers, 95-59, 3 games out of first. Third place, the Boston Red Sox, 94-60. Fourth place, the Cleveland Indians, 92-62. Fifth place, the Washington Senators, 67-87. Sixth place, the Chicago White Sox, 60-94. Seventh place, the St. Louis Browns, 58-96. And in eighth and last place, the Philadelphia Athletics of Connie Mack, 52-102. Winning percentage of .338, 46 games out of first. Now the attendance for the Tribe at home in 1950 was 1,727,464 for an average of 29,010 per game. Cleveland sports writer Dan Coughlin wrote, quote, "We loved the old stadium. It was part of our lives. As a working man, I covered countless Indians games and Browns games over 3 decades and felt a thrill every time I walked through the media entrance. Nothing in this world compared to the old stadium hot dogs. The best thing about the hot dogs was the mustard. You could not get that mustard in any other stadium in the country." The Korean War started in June of 1950 when North Korea invaded South Korea, and the United States was heavily involved in defending South Korea and preserving the independence of South Korea. 1950 was Connie Mack's last year in Major League Baseball. He was the Philadelphia Athletics manager and part owner from 1901 to 1950. Incredible. He was 87 years old and still managing from the dugout. Although he did not wear a uniform, he wore a suit and tie. Excuse me. The 1950 All-Star Game, the American League manager was Casey Stengel. Now, Phil Rizzuto and Yogi Berra had been picked for the team. Then Stengel added 6 Yankee players, 3 coaches, and a trainer, so there were 12 Yankees at the 1950 All-Star Game. I read a fine book. The title is Abner and Me, a baseball card adventure by Dan Gutman, 2005. This book involves time travel and also Abner Doubleday, the mythical inventor of baseball. And so this character, he travels through time and goes back to 1863 and experiences the battle of Gettysburg. And he meets General Doubleday, who denies inventing baseball. Wonderful book. Now, the Tribe owner in 1950 was Ellis Ryan, new owner. He was born, the head of the ownership group, let's say that. Ryan was born in 1904 in Cleveland, Ohio, and died in 1966 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, at age 62. He was the Tribe owner from late in 1949 till 1952 and bought the team from Bill Veeck. And then later he sold his share in the Tribe to Myron H. Wilson in 1953. And Ryan was also a part of a group that bought the Cleveland Browns in 1953 and then sold the Browns to Art Modell in 1961. Ryan was an insurance executive, and his agency was located in the same building as the Cleveland Arena. He was a one-time part owner of the Cleveland Arena and the Cleveland Barons hockey team. Ryan is buried at Knollwood Cemetery in Mayfield Heights, Ohio, a Cleveland suburb on the east side. After buying the Tribe or leading the ownership group, which bought the Tribe, Ryan said, quote, "I will do my utmost to give the fans a winning team. But that does not mean I will attempt to follow in Bill Veeck's footsteps. That is an impossibility, as everybody knows. Let me put it this way. I hope to be able to strike a happy medium between Alva Bradley and Bill Veeck." Ellis Ryan was in the Second World War in the U.S. Army Air Corps, and he served in the China-Burma-India theater of the war. He earned the Legion of Merit and was decorated by the King of Siam, which is, of course, Siam is now Thailand, Ellis Ryan. Hank Greenberg was the new general manager in 1950. Greenberg was born in 1911 in New York, New York, and died in 1986 in Beverly Hills, California at age 75. He had a tremendous playing career. Greenberg batted .313 in his career with 331 home runs and 1,276 RBIs. Greenberg played for the Detroit Tigers in 1930, and then with them from 1933 to 41 and from 45 to 46, and with the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1947. Greenberg was a five-time All-Star from 1937 to 1940 and in 1945. He won 2 World Series titles with the Tigers in 1935 and 1940, and in 1948 with the Tribe in the front office. He was a 4-time American League home run leader, 1935, 38, 40, and 46. 4-time American League RBI leader in 1935, 37, 40, and 46 as well. So in 35, 40, and 46, you could call him the 2/3 of the Triple Crown winner. The Detroit Tigers retired his number 5. 1956, he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. They called him Hammerin' Hank and the Hebrew Hammer. He was Jewish. 1935, he hit 58 home runs, 2 short of Babe Ruth's record. He was the first Jewish-American superstar in American team sports. 1934, Greenberg refused to play on Yom Kippur, a Jewish holy day. His parents were Jewish Romanian immigrants. 1937, Greenberg had 183 RBIs. In the Second World War, he was in the U.S. Army Air Forces from 1941 to 1945 and served in the China-Burma-India Theater. 1947, Greenberg was the Tribe Farm Director, which he did for 2 years, and he developed more African-American players during those 2 years than any other executive in baseball. He developed the Tribe Miners, which led to the strong 1950s Cleveland Indians teams. He was the Tribe GM from 1950 to 1957 for 8 years. He was also the mastermind of a potential move of the Tribe to Minneapolis. In 1959, he joined Bill Veeck in a group to buy the Chicago White Sox and won an American League title with the White Sox in '59. And he was with them until 1961 when, again, Bill Veeck sold the team. Later on, Greenberg was a successful investment banker. And he teamed up with Bill Veeck to, again, buy the White Sox in 1975. 1947, Greenberg befriended and encouraged Jackie Robinson. Greenberg said, quote, "When I was playing, I used to resent being singled out as a Jewish ball player. I wanted to be known as a great ball player. I'm not sure why or when I changed. Lately, though, I find myself wanting to be remembered not only as a great ball player, but even more as a great Jewish ball player." In 2006, there was a U.S. postage stamp honoring baseball sluggers. And this group of stamps included Mickey Mantle, Mel Ott, Roy Campanella, and Hank Greenberg. There was a 2013 movie, The Life and Times of Hank Greenberg. As Tribe General Manager, Greenberg won 1 American League title in 1954. The team finished second 5 times, 4th once, and 6th once. His record as GM was 738, won 738 games, lost 493 for a winning percentage of .600 over an 8-year period, which is tremendous. And Cleveland had the most wins during that 8-year period. However, he developed a bad relationship with the Cleveland sports media, unfortunately. And Greenberg said, quote, "Our players needed some encouragement. It is very difficult for players to pick up the papers every morning, particularly after losing, and having the press lecture on what the team is doing wrong." So despite these many strong winning seasons, the Tribe attendance really dropped from 2.2 million in 1949 to 720,000 in 1957 after that 8-year period of a winning percentage of .600. But people were frustrated, always so many times finishing second to the Yankees, and support for the Tribe declined. He was one of his first acts as Tribe GM was to cut Bob Feller's salary. He said, quote, I'm just getting even for all those times fellers struck me out. Hank Greenberg was 6 feet 3 inches tall when he was 13 years old, and he recalled, quote, I began to think I was a freak. I felt that everybody was laughing at me. It was embarrassing. I was always slouching around, more or less hiding, never standing up straight. Sports was my escape from all that. 1937, again, Greenberg had 183 RBIs, third all-time. The all-time record is Hack Wilson with 190 in 1930 and Lou Gehrig with 184 in 1932. And Greenberg said, quote, runs batted in were my obsession, not home runs. 1945, on the last day of the season, it was the ninth inning, the bases loaded. The Tigers were in Washington playing the Senators, and Greenberg hit a grand slam home run to help the Tigers win the American League pennant. Then they went on to win the World Series. He said, quote, only a few months before I was in India, wondering if the Second World War would ever end. And now the war was actually over, and not only that, but I just hit a pennant-winning grand slam home run. I wasn't sure if I was awake or dreaming. I met Bill Veeck at the 1947 World Series and found a kindred spirit and joined him in the Cleveland Indians front office in 1948. In my opinion, Bill Veeck is the smartest and most innovative baseball executive of all time. I'm reading a fine book. The title is Hank Greenberg, The Story of My Life by Hank Greenberg with Ira Berkow, 1989. Ira Berkow wrote, quote, Hank Greenberg carried with him the burden of the historical Jews, facing great odds against injustice and hatred, and withstanding it all, not only to survive, but to prevail. Greenberg's son Stephen said, quote, he taught me that you don't have to break every record to achieve greatness. You don't have to be invincible to be strong, and you don't have to be perfect to be loved. Greenberg said, quote, I grew up with typical Jewish parents whose objective was to send their children to college, to become doctors or dentists or lawyers or school teachers. But I loved baseball and stuck with it. One of his teammates, Harry Eisenstadt, said, quote, Hank Greenberg had a lot of empathy for people. He always said hello to the ticket takers. How's your family? Are the kids all right? If he knew the kids were ill, he'd always be there to help. 1938, Greenberg again challenged Babe Ruth's home run record of 60 and hit 58. A Jewish periodical in Boston wrote this, quote, we have had pogroms before, we have had wars before, we have had trouble with Arabs before, but never before have we had a Jewish home run king. Hank Greenberg is another form of goodwill emissary for the Jewish people. Greenberg wrote, quote, said, quote, I came to the fact that if I, as a Jew, hit a home run, I was hitting one against Adolf Hitler. In June of 1941, Greenberg enlisted in the U.S. Army, and the Second World War had started in Europe, but not in the United States. U.S. Senator Joshua Bailey of North Carolina said, quote, Hank Greenberg quit a $55,000 a year job to serve his country at $21 a month. To my mind, he's a bigger hero than when he was knocking home runs. And Greenberg had 4 years in the U.S. military. He had this to say about 1947, quote, I identify with Jackie Robinson. I had feelings for him because they had treated me the same way. 1947, Greenberg was playing for the Pirates, and there was a game where his teammate, the pitcher Jim Bagby Jr., who played for Cleveland previously, and there was a situation where there was a ground ball that went through Greenberg's legs for an error, and Bagby said, quote, hey, you big Jew son of a bitch, you make enough money to catch that kind of ball. And Greenberg responded, quote, I'm going to kill you after this game is over. And there was a fight in the locker room, but his teammates broke it up. 1948, Greenberg was in the tribe front office, and he said, quote, the Indians were the talk of that part of the country, and Bill Veeck was primarily responsible for it. 1945, Greenberg was the tribe farm director. Hank Greenberg. Jack Graney was back as with WERE Radio 1300 and WEWS TV as the tribe radio broadcaster. Jack Graney played for the Cleveland Naps and Cleveland Indians in 1908 and from 1910 to 1922, and was the Tribe radio broadcaster from 1932 to 1953. Jack Graney. Jimmy Dudley was his partner on WERE 1300 radio and WEWS television, and Dudley was the Tribe radio broadcaster from 1948 to 1968. Jimmy Dudley. Now the coaching staff, Mel Harder was the pitching coach. Harder played for the Tribe from 1928 to 1947, was the Tribe pitching coach from 1948 to 1963. He threw out the first pitch at Cleveland Municipal Stadium in 1932 and the last ceremonial pitch at the stadium in 1993. Mel Harder. Ski Malilo was another coach. Malilo was a coach from 1939 to 1940, in 1942, from 1945 to 48, and in 1950. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. However, he continued as an MLB coach until 1956 with the Kansas City Athletics. Ski Malilo. Muddy Rule was another coach. He was a Tribe coach between 1948 to 1950. So this was the end of his time in Cleveland. Later, he became the Detroit Tigers general manager from 1954 to 1956. Muddy Rule. Al Simmons was a new coach. Simmons was a Tribe coach from 1950 to 1951. He was born in 1902 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and died in 1956 in Milwaukee at age 54. Yet Simmons had a tremendous playing career. He batted .334, wow, 2,927 hits, 307 home runs, 1,828 RBIs, tremendous. Simmons played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Chicago White Sox, Detroit Tigers, Washington Senators, Boston Braves, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Boston Red Sox between 1924 and 1944. He was a three-time All-Star from 1933 to 35. Won 2 World Series titles in 1929 and 1930 with the Philadelphia Athletics. 2-time American League batting champion in 1930 and 31. The American League RBI leader in 1929. He's in the Philadelphia Baseball Hall of Fame and was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1953. When he was born, his name was Alwa Zimanski, and then he took the name Al Simmons. They called him Bucketfoot Al. He died of a heart attack. He's also in the Wisconsin Athletic Hall of Fame and the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. And he was ranked 43rd by the Sporting News among the 100 greatest MLB players of all time. Al Simmons. Lou Boudreau was back as Tribe player manager, and he was a shortstop who came off the bench. Boudreau batted .269 with 70 hits. He scored 23 runs, 13 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 29 RBIs, a stolen base, and 31 walks in 81 games. Boudreau was a Tribe player from 1938 to 1941 and Tribe player manager from 1942 to 1950. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. He continued as an MLB player until 1952 with the Red Sox, and he was an MLB manager until 1960 with the Cubs. Boudreau was the Cubs radio broadcaster in 1958 to 59, and from 1961 to 1987. Lou Boudreau was fired on November 10th after the season and replaced by Al Lopez. He was not traded out of respect and was released so he could sign with any team. Hank Greenberg said, quote, "We knew we had a man as a manager who was probably the most popular player in the history of the Cleveland Baseball Club. We also knew we had a fine, outstanding gentleman whom everybody loved." Lou Boudreau said, quote, "Naturally, I was quite shocked. I'm terribly sorry to leave Cleveland, for the fans have been wonderful to me." 1951, Boudreau was a utility player for the Red Sox, playing for Steve O'Neill, who was the manager of the Red Sox, who was previous Tribe player and manager. Boudreau at the University of Illinois, his number 3 was retired, and that's all. They've only retired 4 numbers. His number, Red Grange's number 77, and Dick Butkus's number 50. The Tribe retired his number 5 also. In spring training in 1951, Steve O'Neill was sick and retired, so Boudreau was hired to become the Red Sox player manager. He only had 2 at-bats in 1951. He was hit by the pitch and had a broken hand, which ended his playing career. 1952, he was the manager of the Red Sox. Jimmy Pearsall, later played for Cleveland, was on the Red Sox and was mentally ill and hospitalized. Boudreau was fired by the Red Sox after the 54 season. And then, now, in 1955, the Athletics had moved from Philadelphia to Kansas City. So 55 was their first year in Kansas City. And Lou Boudreau was the first manager of the Kansas City Athletics. The first game of the KCAs, Boudreau said, quote, "The fans loved us. I'll never forget our first game. Former President Harry Truman threw out the first pitch, and Connie Mack was among the crowd of nearly 33,000 that saw us beat Detroit 6-2. You would have thought we just clinched the pennant." He continued as the manager of the Kansas City Athletics until 1957. He had some of his players included Vic Power, who later played for Cleveland, and Tommy Lasorda, who was a famous LA Dodgers manager years later. Boudreau spent 30 years as the Chicago Cubs radio broadcaster. His daughter Sharon married MLB star pitcher Denny McLain, who was the last pitcher to win 30 games. He won in 1968. He went 31-6. So his son, Boudreau's son Louis, was in the Vietnam War and wounded 3 times. His son Jim went to Arizona State College and was in the College World Series and played in the minor leagues for the Cubs and Orioles organizations. His son-in-law Denny McLain got in trouble, had spent 2 years in prison, and Boudreau said, quote, We all go through life having to learn lessons of one sort or another. Denny's was tougher than most of us have to face, and he had to learn the hard way. But the important thing is that he learned, and that he's a better person for it. Boudreau's daughter and his wife, Kristen, died at age 26, was killed in a car accident. Boudreau said, quote, "You never get over something like that. You only survive it." He was very happy as the Chicago Cubs radio broadcaster, and he said, quote, "I'll always consider myself a Cleveland Indian, and always be grateful to the Cleveland fans for their loyalty to me. But the Cubs were my team from the time I could pick up a ball and throw it, and I was happy to be with them." Boudreau called himself, quote, "a guy who loved playing the game, who always played it as hard as he could, and who will be forever grateful for having had the opportunity to do so. I'm grateful to the Lord for giving me the ability to play the wonderful game of baseball." Lou Boudreau died in 2001 in Olympia Falls, Illinois, at age 84. God bless Lou Boudreau. Now the starting lineup, Jim Hegan was the starting catcher. Hegan batted .219 with 91 hits. He scored 53 runs, 16 doubles, 5 triples, 14 home runs, 58 RBIs, a stolen base, 42 walks in 131 games. And Hegan was with Cleveland in 1941 to 1942 and from 1946 to 1957. Jim Hegan. Luke Easter was the first baseman. Easter batted .280 with 151 hits. He scored 96 runs, 20 doubles, 4 triples, 28 home runs, 107 RBIs, 70 walks, and he struck out 95 times in 141 games. What a tremendous year for Luke Easter. Easter was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1954. On June 23rd, Easter hit the longest home run at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, went 477 feet into the upper deck in right field against Joe Haynes of the Washington Senators in a game the Tribe won 11-0. He also a barnstorm with Bob Feller before the season, and Luke Easter was the big attraction. Al Rosen said, quote, "Luke was a great, big, easygoing, devil-may-care, jolly, hail fellow, well-met kind of guy who took a ribbing and dished it out. Luke Easter." Joe Gordon was at second base. Gordon batted .236 with 87 hits. He scored 59 runs, 12 doubles, a triple, 19 home runs, 57 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 56 walks in 119 games. And Gordon was a Tribe player from 1947 to 1950. This was the end of his time as a player in Cleveland. However, he returned as Tribe manager from 1958 to 1960. Lou Boudreau said, quote, "When the time came for Joe Gordon to go at the end of the season, he handled it with class. Joe's a dear friend of mine. His legs went on him, and when they did, he went downhill fast. It's always sad when a player reaches the end of the road, but it happens to everybody sooner or later. Joe Gordon." Ray Boone was at shortstop. Boone batted .301 with 110 hits. He scored 53 runs, 14 doubles, 6 triples, 7 home runs, 58 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 56 walks in 109 games. And Boone was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1953. Ray Boone. Al Rosen was at third base. Rosen batted .287 with 159 hits. He scored 100 runs, 23 doubles, 4 triples. He led the American League with 37 home runs and he had 116 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 100 walks in 154 games. Tremendous season for Al Rosen. And Rosen was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1956. Al Rosen. Dale Mitchell was in left field. Mitchell batted .308 with 156 hits, 81 runs, 27 doubles, 5 triples, 3 home runs, 49 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 67 walks in 130 games. And Mitchell was with Cleveland from 1946 to 1956. Dale Mitchell. Larry Doby was in center field. Doby batted .326 with 164 hits. He scored 110 runs, 25 doubles, 5 triples, 25 home runs, 102 RBIs, 8 stolen bases, 98 walks in 142 games. What a tremendous year for Larry Doby. He was a Tribe player from 1947 to 1955 and in 1958, and was a Tribe coach in 1974. He was an All-Star in 1950. Now, Doby and his wife Helen, and baby Christina were in Tucson, Arizona during spring training, and there was a very unfortunate incident. They were together, and their baby daughter was coughing and needed a drink. Doby and his wife, at the suggestion of Aldona Jones, the wife of PD sports writer Harry Jones, entered the Santa Rita Hotel looking for water. However, they were stopped because no blacks were allowed in the hotel and instructed to leave the hotel. Terrible. Doby was voted by the Cleveland sports writers the 1950 Tribe Man of the Year, and there was a banquet on January 22, 1951, when Doby received his award, and he said this at that time, quote, "I first want to thank the Lord above that he gave me the ability he did in order that I might earn my living playing baseball. I want to play tribute to the man who gave me my first contract, Bill Veeck. The next man I admire and appreciate very much, Lou Boudreau, who had confidence in me and gave me the chance to be the Man of the Year tonight." He also thanked Bill McKechnie, Mel Harder coaches, Hank Greenberg, Tris Speaker, Muddy Rule, his teammates, the fans, his family, baseball writers, the stadium policemen, and the groundskeepers at the stadium. On August 2nd, Doby hit 3 home runs in a game against the Washington Senators that the Tribe won 11-0. Larry Doby. Bob Kennedy was in right field. Kennedy batted .291 with 157 hits. He scored 79 runs, 27 doubles, 5 triples, 9 home runs, 54 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 53 walks in 146 games. And Kennedy was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1954. Bob Kennedy. Now, the bench players included Bobby Avila, who played some second base. Avila batted .299 with 60 hits. He scored 39 runs, 10 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 21 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 29 walks in 80 games. And Avila was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1958. Bobby Avila. Allie Clark played some outfield. Clark batted .215 with 35 hits. He scored 19 runs, 6 doubles, a triple, 6 home runs, 21 RBIs, 11 walks in 59 games. And Clark was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1951. Allie Clark. Ray Murray was a spare catcher. Murray batted .273 with 38 hits. He scored 16 runs, 8 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 13 RBIs, a stolen base, 12 walks in 55 games. And Murray was with Cleveland in 1948 and from 1950 to 1951. Ray Murray. Thurman Tucker played some outfield. Tucker batted .178 with 18 hits. He scored 13 runs, 2 doubles, a home run, 7 RBIs, a stolen base, 14 walks in 57 games. And Tucker was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1951. Thurman Tucker. Mickey Vernon played some first base. He batted .189 with 17 hits. He scored 8 runs, 10 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 12 walks in 28 games. Vernon was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1950. And then in 1958, on June 14th, Vernon was traded to the Washington Senators for pitcher Dick Wyke. Mickey Vernon. Jim Lemon was an outfield, played some outfield. Lemon batted .176 with 6 hits. He scored 4 runs, had a double, a home run, an RBI, 3 walks in 12 games. Lemon was born in 1928 in Covington, Virginia, and died in 2006 in Brandon, Mississippi at age 78. For his career, he batted .262 with 164 home runs and 529 RBIs. Lemon played for the Cleveland Indians, Washington Senators, Minnesota Twins, Philadelphia Phillies, and Chicago White Sox from 1950 to 1963. He was a two-time All-Star in 1960 when there were two All-Star games in 1960. His given name was James Robert. They called him Bob, but he became known as Jim to avoid confusion with Bob Lemon. He was not related to Bob Lemon. Otherwise, we would have had two Bob Lemons if he kept the name he was known by. His favorite U.S. president, he became a favorite of U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower after a game in which the president saw Lemon hit three home runs in one game in 1956. After he retired, Lemon was a coach for the Twins and manager of the Senators. And with the Senators, as manager, had a record of 65 and 96, or a winning percentage of .404. Lemon is in the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. He was a free swinger and 3 times led the American League striking out. In 1956, he led the American League in triples. Jim Lemon. Herb Conyers played some first base and did some pinch hitting. Conyers batted .333 with 3 hits and 9 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a home run, an RBI, a stolen base, a walk in 7 games. Conyers was born in 1921 in Cowgill, Missouri, and died in 1964 in Cleveland, Ohio at age 42 of cancer. His MLB career was just with the Cleveland Indians in 1950. He was a professional baseball player for 9 seasons. Most of it was in the Tribe minor leagues. And he's buried in Knollwood Cemetery in Mayfield Heights, Ohio. In the minor leagues, he played for the Baltimore Orioles, Birmingham Barons, Dallas Eagles, Dayton Indians, Harrisburg Senators, San Diego Padres, Wausau Timberjacks, and Wilkes-Barre Barons. Herb Conyers. Johnny Berardino played some infield. He batted .400 with 2 hits and 5 at-bats. He scored a run, had 3 RBIs, a walk in 4 games. Berardino was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1950 and in 1952. Johnny Berardino. On the pitching staff, the ace pitcher was Bob Lemon, who was 23-11 with an ERA of 3.84. 44 games, 37 starts, 22 complete games, 3 shutouts, 3 saves, 288 innings pitched, and 170 strikeouts. He also hit well. He batted .272 with 37 hits. 21 runs scored, 9 doubles, a triple, 6 home runs, 26 RBIs, 13 walks in 72 games. Lemon was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1942, and from 1946 to 1958, he was the winningest pitcher in the American League in 1950 with 23 victories and played on the All-Star team. Bob Lemon. Bob Feller was 16-11 with an ERA of 3.43, 35 games, 34 starts, 16 complete games, 3 shutouts, 247 innings pitched, and 119 strikeouts. Feller batted .120 with 10 hits. He scored 7 runs, had a triple, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 5 walks, and struck out 33 times. Feller was with Cleveland from 1936 to 1941 and from 1945 to 1956. And was a Tribe Goodwill Ambassador till the end of his life. Feller became the 53rd MLB player to win 200 games in 1950. On July 2nd at the stadium in Cleveland, when he won, was a starting pitcher and winner 2-1 against the Tigers. Feller said, quote, "Some people said that I couldn't have another banner year, that I was finished. I knew better, but in that situation, it doesn't do any good to try to convince people with talk. But when the 1950 season ended with such a strong September, there wasn't any doubt at all in my mind about one thing. In 1951, I was going to shut some people up." After Feller barnstormed in the offseason before the 1950 season. However, there was poor attendance at those games, and Feller lost money. He said, quote, "This fall exhibition business used to be a big deal, but the way things are going this fall, the players are just getting a nice trip out of it." Feller also played on the 1950 All-Star team. Bob Feller. Early Wynn was 18-8 with an ERA of 3.20. 32 games, 28 starts, 14 complete games, 2 shutouts, 213 2/3 innings pitched, and 143 strikeouts. Wynn batted .234 with 18 hits. He scored 12 runs, had 5 doubles, a triple, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 10 walks in 39 games. and Wynn was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1957 and in 1963, and he had the best ERA in the American League in 1950. Early Wynn. Mike Garcia was 11-11 with an ERA of 3.86. 33 games, 29 starts, 11 complete games, 184 innings pitched, and 76 strikeouts. Garcia batted .200 with 13 hits. He scored 4 runs, had 2 doubles, 6 RBIs, a walk, and struck out 25 times. And Garcia was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1959. Mike Garcia. Steve Gromek was 10-7 with an ERA of 3.65, 31 games, 13 starts, 4 complete games, a shutout, 113 and a third innings pitched, and 43 strikeouts. Gromek batted .158 with 6 hits. He scored a run, had an RBI, a walk, and struck out 9 times. And Gromek was with Cleveland from 1941 to 1953. Steve Gromek. Sam Zoldak was a relief pitcher. Zoldak was 4-2 with an ERA of 3.96, 33 games, 3 starts, 4 saves, 63 and 2/3 innings pitched, and 15 strikeouts. Zoldak batted .188 with 3 hits. He scored 2 runs, had 2 RBIs, and walked twice. Zoldak was with Cleveland from 1948 to 1950. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1952. Sam Zoldak. Al Benton was another relief pitcher. Benton was 4-2 with an ERA of 3.57, 36 games, no starts, 4 saves, 63 innings pitched, and 26 strikeouts. Benton batted .083 with 1 hit and 12 at-bats. He scored a run, walked twice, and struck out 9 times. And Benton was with Cleveland from 1949 to 1950. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1952. Al Benton. Marino Piaretti was another relief pitcher. Piaretti was 0-1 with an ERA of 4.18, 29 games, 1 start, 1 save, 47 and a third innings pitched, and 11 strikeouts. Piaretti batted .286 with 2 hits and 7 at-bats and had an RBI. He was born in 1920 in Lucca, Italy, and died in 1981 in San Francisco, California at age 60. For his career, he was 30-38 with an ERA of 4.53, 188 strikeouts, and 673 and 2/3 innings pitched. Piaretti pitched for the Washington Senators, Chicago White Sox, and Cleveland Indians from 1945 to 1950. This was the end of his MLB career. He won 122 games and lost 122 games in the Pacific Coast League from 1943 to 1956. He was a submariner with a sidewinder delivery. He worked in a slaughterhouse in the off-season and developed cancer in the mid-1970s. His friends organized a group called the Friends of Marino Piaretti to buoy his spirits. He died in 1981. His friends, this group, the Friends of Marino Piaretti, still meet monthly as of January 2011 in his memory. Piaretti in the minor leagues played for the Des Moines Bruins, El Paso Texans, Los Angeles Angels, Modesto Reds, and Portland Beavers. Marino Piaretti. Jesse Flores was another relief pitcher. Flores was 3-3 with an ERA of 3.74, 28 games, 2 starts, a complete game, a shutout, 4 saves, 53 innings pitched, and 27 strikeouts. Flores batted 11 times. He did not have a hit. He struck out twice. He was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico in 1914 and died in Orange, California in 1991 at age 77. For his career, he was 44-59 with an ERA of 3.18 and 352 strikeouts. Flores pitched for the Chicago Cubs, Philadelphia Athletics, and Cleveland Indians from 1942 to 1950. This was the end of his playing career. After he retired, he became a scout for the Minnesota Twins and signed Bert Blyleven. Wow. His 2 sons, Jesse Jr. and Steve, were also MLB scouts. In the minor leagues, Flores played for the Oakland Oaks and Portland Beavers. Jesse Flores. Gene Bearden was 1-3 with an ERA of 6.15, 14 games, 3 starts, 45 and a third innings pitched, and 10 strikeouts. Bearden batted .154 with 2 hits and 13 at-bats. He scored 2 runs, had a double, a triple, walked twice, and struck out twice. Bearden was with Cleveland from 1947 to 1950. This was the end of his time in Cleveland. His MLB career continued until 1953. One of the great, wonderful heroes of 1948, Gene Bearden. Dick Wyke was 1-3 with an ERA of 3.81, 11 games, 2 starts, 26 innings pitched, and 16 strikeouts. Weick batted .200 with 1 hit and 5 at-bats. He had a double and struck out 4 times. He was born in 1927 in Waterloo, Iowa, and died in 1991 in Harvey, Illinois at age 63. For his career, he was 6-22 with an ERA of 5.90 and 213 2/3 innings pitched. Weick pitched for the Washington Senators, Cleveland Indians, and Detroit Tigers between 1948 and 1954. In the minor leagues, he pitched for the Chattanooga Lookouts and Charlotte Hornets. Dick Weick. Dick Rozek had no decisions and an ERA of 4.97, 12 games, 2 starts, 25 1/3 innings pitched, and 14 strikeouts. He batted 5 times, did not have a hit, and struck out 3 times. Rozek was born in 1927 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and died in 2001 in Indio, California at age 74. For his career, he was 1-0 with an ERA of 4.55 and 26 strikeouts. Rozek played for the Cleveland Indians and Philadelphia Athletics from 1950 to 1954. In the minor leagues, he played for the Little Rock Travelers, Meridian Peps, Ottawa A's, and the Wilkes-Barre Barons. Dick Rozek. And finally, Al Aber was 1-0 with an ERA of 2.00. 1 game, which was a start and a complete game, pitched 9 innings, struck out 4. He batted twice, did not have a hit, walked once, and struck out once himself. Aber was born in 1927 in Cleveland, Ohio, and died in 1993 in Garfield Heights, Ohio at age 65. For his career, he was 24-25 with an ERA of 4.18 and 169 strikeouts. Aber played for the Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, and Kansas City Athletics between 1950 and 1957, and they called him Lefty. Al Aber. After the regular season, the 1950 World Series was played, and the American League champions, New York Yankees, defeated the National League champions, Philadelphia Phillies, in a sweep, 4-0. For their second World Series, and eventually 5 straight Yankee titles. Hall of Famers in the World Series included umpires Al Barlick, Jocko Conlon, and Bill McGowan. And for the Yankees, Casey Stengel, the manager, Yogi Berra, Joe DiMaggio, Whitey Ford, Johnny Mize, and Phil Rizzuto. And for the Phillies, Richie Ashburn and Robin Roberts. The Phillies, this was their only pennant that they won, the only American League title between 1915 and 1980. Phillies reliever Jim Constantine was 16-7 with 22 saves and pitched in a record 74 games. He also started Game 1 of the series. Allie Reynolds saved Game 4, which ended, former Cleveland Indian, which closed out the series. Casey Stengel said, quote, "When you are younger, you get blamed for crimes you never committed. And when you're older, you begin to get credit for virtues you never possessed. It evens itself out." Phil Rizzuto of the Yankees had a fear of bugs and animals, and his teammates would play pranks on him. Peter Golenbach wrote, quote, "When his teammates played tricks on him, Phil Rizzuto was glad, because it meant that the guys still liked him. They would put worms in his glove and so forth." Now, the old tradition was to leave your playing glove on the field and when the team would come into bat. And as a result, sometimes the guys would put a worms or a dead mouse in his, or soggy chewing tobacco in Rizzuto's glove. And then he'd pick up the glove to put his hand in. He'd scream and throw the glove, and everyone would laugh. And then after that, because of this, Rizzuto started bringing his glove to the dugout, and it became a new tradition where the players all brought their gloves to the dugout. Later, Rizzuto became a Yankee announcer. His famous line is, "Holy cow." The first 3 games of the World Series were 1-run games that the Yankees won 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2. And the Yankees in Game 4 in the 9th inning, Stengel took out Whitey Ford and put in Allie Reynolds, who got the final strikeout to win the game 5-2. Stengel said, quote, "As I have been telling you, the Philadelphia's is hard to defeat, and I am paid by my employers to defeat them, which is why I went for the feller with the big fastball. Have a nice winter." Now, the MVPs in 1950 in the American League, Phil Rizzuto of the New York Yankees, and in the National League, Jim Constantine of the Philadelphia Phillies. So that's the story of the 1950 Cleveland Indians. They had a tremendous year, really something. God bless the guys who played for the Cleveland Indians in 1950 and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the First World War veterans, Second World War veterans, and Korean War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue and the Fountain of Eternal Life, Euclid Avenue Electricity, Severance Hall Stalwarts, Cleveland Museum of Art enthusiasts, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum rebels, Christmas Story House happy people, Museum of Contemporary Art maniacs, Cleveland Botanical Garden goers, Old Arcade admirers, Playhouse Square seers, Settlers Landing Park purists, Western Reserve Historical Society wonders, First Energy Stadium friends, Progressive Field pals, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse renegades, Cuyahoga Valley National Park pioneers, and Great Lakes Science Center supporters. Tribe, Browns, Cavs, Monsters, Gladiators, and Fusion rule. Cleveland, City of Champions. Cleveland is the best location in the nation on the north coast of America. New York is the Big Apple. Cleveland is a plum. It's been 71 years since 1948. This is our year. Go Tribe. We're having a good year. You might consider checking out our website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.